What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. Don't make it easy. When you set up obstacles, the reader is invested in what happens. It creates suspense. It creates tension. Tension between what the character wants and what's getting in the way. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. What do you do when you're stuck in a scene, or you know the scene isn't working and you just don't know why or how to move the scene forward? In this episode, we'll go over 3 reasons your scenes are getting stuck and what to do to get unstuck. First, a reminder of what a scene is. A scene is a self-contained mini-story. It has a beginning, middle, and end, and it's a microcosm of your entire story, meaning it has a relationship to your character's main story goal. Every scene is a unit of action that culminates in a new realization, discovery, understanding, confession, or a new experience. Something new needs to be revealed in each scene that moves the story forward. So here are 3 reasons your scenes are getting stuck and what to do instead. Number 1, you don't know what your character wants in the scene. Your character will come into every scene with a specific goal or expectation. By the end of the scene, the goal will likely change or recalibrate due to what he or she learns, discovers, or realizes during the scene. I'm currently reading Station 11, a dystopian novel. This was recommended to me by another writer. A shout out to Alicia. It's a great novel, and each scene is a gem. For example, in scene 1, Jivan, a student paramedic, wants to perform CPR on a famous actor, Arthur, who Jivan recognizes as having a heart attack in the middle of performing King Lear. Jivan wants to save him. He jumps on stage and attempts to perform CPR. He calls out in the audience for a doctor. A cardiologist comes on stage, but Arthur dies. The next time we meet Jivan, he's walking alone in the park. He wants to decompress after the chaos of Arthur's on-stage death, and he decides to go visit his brother to tell him about what just happened. And while he's on the streetcar headed to his brother's apartment, he gets a phone call from his friend, a doctor, warning him about the flu that's going around. Now, at first, Jivan just thinks this means his friend is going to be working late. But as the scene progresses, his friend calls back with even more dire news. People are dying in droves. He tells him to leave the city. His goal is still to go see his brother. By the end of the scene, he still wants to see his brother, but the scene goal is about to intensify. Now, a scene goal does not have to be dramatic. It can be simple. Todd wants to go for a run after his wife gets home from work. Paul wants to make up with his wife after a fight that happened the scene before. So a scene goal does not have to be dramatic. It can be simple, but some revelation or new information should redirect your character at the end of the scene. In other words, what will he do next? Okay, on to number 2. You're making it too easy for your character to get the goal. You never want to make life easy for your character. For example, in the opening scene of Station 11, when Jivan is the first to realize Arthur is having a heart attack on stage, he doesn't just leap on the stage. The ushers try to stop him. They think he's just a deranged fan. Here's an excerpt. Jivan pushed the usher aside and made a dash for the steps leading up to the stage, but a second usher was jogging down the aisle, which forced Jivan to throw himself at the stage without the benefit of stairs. It was higher than he'd thought, and he had to kick the first usher who'd grasped hold of his sleeve. In a later scene in chapter 3, after he realizes that a pandemic is killing people, he goes shopping to stock up on food and supplies, and he fills 7 overflowing shopping carts. Now, to make his scene goal even harder to achieve, it's late at night, it's almost midnight, the supermarket is about to close, and there's a raging snowstorm outside. His scene goal is still to get to his brother, who's in a wheelchair and lives on the 22nd floor of a high-rise. But now it's overlaid with a new goal, which is to stay put there until the pandemic is over. He's in pure survival mode. It's not just 1 cart, it's 7. He then pushes the carts one by one to his brother's lobby through the snow. It takes him an hour, and then he's got to get the carts onto the freight elevator, which is out of service. It's almost 1 a.m. at this point, and so he bribes the doorman to the tune of $65 to allow him to bring the carts up through the freight elevator. So don't make it easy. I can't tell you how many times a writer will have their character steal something valuable for noble reasons, of course, or escape through a window, or win a love interest over, or some other scene goal, and it's over in a sentence or two, or the character doesn't encounter challenges in getting what he or she wants. The writer doesn't put up any obstacles, and when you make it too easy, you've already lost us. So make it challenging. Characters are revealed in how they transcend obstacles. They're forced to rise to the occasion. So think of all the obstacles in the scene I just cited from Station 11. Jivan's just realized that there's a serious pandemic that's killing people in droves and is highly contagious. He's had anxiety attacks in the past, and this is sending him over the edge. He's got not just 1 overflowing cart of food and supplies, but 7. The store is about to close. There's a raging snowstorm outside, and he must trudge through the snow 1 cart at a time to the lobby of his brother's building. This alone takes him another hour. And then he must bribe the doorman for unscheduled use of the freight elevator to bring the carts up to his brother's apartment. By the time he gets to his brother, it's 1 a.m. Now, his brother has no idea there's a killer pandemic raging through the city, or he doesn't realize how serious this flu epidemic is. And when his brother opens the door, he says to Jivan, "I see you went shopping." That's the end of the scene. So at the end of the scene, having accomplished his scene goal, stock up on food and supplies to wait out the pandemic, we know he's about to embark on a new reality, a new experience. So don't make it easy. When you set up obstacles, the reader is invested in what happens. It creates suspense. It creates tension between what the character wants and what's getting in the way. Now, not all scenes have to have this many obstacles. And you certainly don't need to set up as many challenges as Jivan has in the shopping scene. But imagine if after learning about the pandemic, Jivan just went shopping and brought them up to his brother's apartment without any obstacle. That's just information, and it's not compelling. So look at a scene from a book you admire, just one scene or sequence of scenes, and write down first what the character's scene goal is, what's the need, and then all the obstacles the character faces as he or she pursues the goal. Okay, on to number 3. The scene has no relationship to the main story goal. Often writers throw in too many goals in a scene, and so the scene loses focus. Often I'll read scenes where the character swings from one goal to the next, or they'll have a scene goal, but it won't have any connection to the main story goal or desire. Now, an interesting thing about Station 11 is that Jivan is not the main protagonist. He reappears later in the novel, and his storyline is crucial to the plot. However, the novel is about survival, and in this scene where Jivan goes shopping, he's in full survival mode. There's his girlfriend who left him at the theater while he was backstage tending to a child actor, Kirsten. But his goal to survive in the scene isn't muddled by other desires, like to be with his girlfriend. He also doesn't think about his desire to be a paramedic in this scene. He thinks about his career choices in a slower scene earlier, but when he's in full throttle crisis mode, he does something extreme. It focuses on one goal: shopping for enough food and supplies to survive the flu pandemic. And he doesn't even know yet how bad this pandemic is going to become. Now, often characters will have goals, but there's no through line. So let me go through the first few scenes with Jivan. The very first scene where he tries to save Arthur is not some random thing. He's a student paramedic. Years later, in the novel's timeline, years after civilization has ended due to the pandemic, he becomes a doctor. In the scene, when he's on the phone with his friend is a doctor calling from the hospital. So every scene is a reconstruction or microcosm of a character's main story goal. Notice, none of this is stated directly. The reader is able to make those connections as the story progresses, so everything is connected. So, if you're stuck on a scene, or you don't know what scene to write next, or you're just not satisfied with the scene you've written, you know it's not working, but you don't know why, here are 3 things to keep in mind. Number 1, give your character one goal for the scene. It doesn't have to be dramatic. And the scene doesn't have to be a long scene. It might just be as simple as Todd wanting to get a jog in when his wife gets home from work and can take over watching their 2-year-old, or to make up with a spouse after a fight. Number 2, don't make it easy. Put up at least one obstacle. For example, if Todd wants to go for a run, but his wife calls and says she's working late and can he start dinner? Well, there goes his run. If Paul wants to make up with Janice after they've had a fight, she'll give him the cold shoulder or tell him to please stop talking. In other words, he's not going to get what he wants without a struggle. Number 3, scene goals should be connected to the main story goal or be a microcosm of the main conflict. So, pick any scene from a story you're reading or a book you've read and is inspiring your current story and look for these 3 things. I would even write them down. Number 1, the scene goal. It should be simple and concrete. Number 2, the obstacle or obstacles that thwart the goal or cause the character to redirect the goal. And number 3, how the scene goal relates to the overarching story goal or conflict. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.